Hello to everyone. My name is Begoña Bellés, and I'm here today with my colleague Sergio Peñalver. It is a pleasure for us to be here in the International Conference of FUTUREDUCA. We really believe that the topics in this conference are very much needed and they are very updated topics. Today, we're going to talk about the introduction to gender diversity in the compulsory secondary school curriculum through technologies. Let me start just by presenting the sections in which we're going to divide our presentation, a very brief introduction. Then Sergio will just explain the complete didactic unit. We'll just move to the evaluation. And finally, we'll just give you some concluding remarks. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the literature background of this study, which is gender diversity and sustainable development goals. In compulsory education classroom, in the compulsory education classroom, inclusion is now being part of the curriculum, and there are new ways of introducing inclusion in the curriculum. According to gender diversity, we really believe that there's a sort of subversion of the rigid binary system of male and female genders, and that is still very much included in the education curriculum. So we're looking to a much more gender neutrality, and we're trying to incorporate gender diversity into the classroom, in this case, in secondary education. And we want to do it, moreover, we want to do it through the use of technology, so that we can, or we aim at saying that using technologies can really improve learning success. We've based the theoretical background on the Sustainable Development Goals. Obviously, we haven't just focused on the 17 of them because these are too many, but we have focused on number 4, which is quality of education. Just summarizing, you have there the main points that include this number 4 SDG, which is inclusion, equality, and lifelong learning. Also universal access to all sorts of education, especially early education, and focuses on vulnerable groups such as people with disabilities, indigenous people, or children under critical situations. Another of the SDGs that are really interesting for the application of our didactic unit is gender equality. In gender equality, apart from trying to achieve gender equality, we have other aspects such as empowering all women and girls, or terminating all types of discrimination against women and girls everywhere, or recognizing and value unpaid care and domestic work, and also recognize reproductive rights. And the third SDG that is fundamental for our didactic unit and later pedagogical application is number 10, which is reduced inequalities. It focuses on factors such as income, sex, age, disability, sexual orientation, race, class, ethnicity, religion, and/or opportunity. And it also aims at the eradication, discriminatory laws, policies, and practices that may compromise the opportunities of any individual. So with this basis, we have developed didactic units that my colleague Sergio Peñalver is going to explain to you immediately. Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your introduction. As my colleague has mentioned, the remainder of this PowerPoint presentation will be devoted to the contents of the didactic unit along with its evaluation. Let me start with the reference material for the activities designed, which was Unit 5, Community Spirit, from the Spectrum 4 Students' Book Manual. Originally, this unit's topic was technology applied to social media, and that was the only aspect that was reconverted into one based on gender diversity. From this, 4 sessions were designed, each covering different topics and skills. The first one was called Targeting or Internalized Stereotypes. The second one, Deepening into the Question of Gender. The third one, Commenting and Dismantling Gender Stereotypes. And we conclude our didactic unit with this session called Building and Supporting Arguments on Gender Diversity. What I'm going to do now is explain each of the sessions and everything that was covered in each of them. So for the first one, we have Targeting or Internalized Stereotypes, which has as objectives to raise awareness on gender roles and to promote collaborative work among students. With the use of sheets of paper and a word cloud generator, it was possible to create the following activity. So for the first step, a simple question was posed to the students, and I simply asked the target group what a man was on the blackboard. I had my students write on this individually, and this step was repeated twice. First, the students were gathered in pairs, and secondly, they formed groups of 4 to 5 people. In this last step, they were asked to also produce final lists and a brief justification of their choices in order to avoid misinterpretation. Following, a word cloud was generated for each of the group's features to project them visually and have them discuss on them on the following lesson. This is the outline of the word clouds that were created, and the rationale behind the selection of the words was that I carefully chose those words that were prominent or repeatedly mentioned throughout the justification or presentation of each of the groups. The second session involved a reading task, where an article taken from the New York Times was obtained and adapted to a more classroom setting, while students make progress in learning more about gender perspectives. In this case, a PowerPoint presentation was created to follow along the presentation, and some activity sheets were designed. In this case, the class was divided in 2 halves, each having a copy from the adapted text from a newspaper article. And the idea was that they were asked to highlight and share the most relevant parts of their texts to the other half of the class. Then students were asked to fulfill activities 1 and 2 from the activity sheets. I will not present them here, but if you want to have further information of this, you can ask us on the forum section of our panel. But as a follow-up activity, we could also start making our students wonder about rules of good conduct on social media, and in this case, have them create a decalogue on rules or behaviors that should be more accepted or tolerant in these digital environments. Then we have the third session. We have now reached the halfway point of our programming, and we are now focusing on the 2 productive tasks of our didactic unit, which were an opinion essay and a debate. These are reminded to the students, and there's more steps that will be mentioned in a few seconds. But the idea is to elicit gender stereotypes in social media, but most importantly, start approaching the opinion essay as a genre. Of course, this presentation was aided by a PowerPoint, and there was also some activity done with a Mentimeter, which you will see in a few seconds as well. So for the procedure, the students were overviewed the lesson and also reminded of the 2 productive tasks to be submitted. And then a Mentimeter was incorporated in the classroom to ensure vocabulary acquisition from the previous lesson. You'll see what I mean in just a few seconds. Then the contents of the PowerPoint presentation related to the elaboration of an opinion essay are explained, and further instructions are provided, as well as a deadline for the submission of the opinion essay. This was the Mentimeter that I was mentioning. In this case, I was asking my students to include up to 3 words maximum of vocabulary that they had acquired in the previous session. We conclude our didactic unit with this last session, Building and Supported Arguments on Gender Diversity. And in this case, we are going to talk about the debate. Prior to this, it was important to expose our students to views on LGBT-related issues at the same time that argumentation skills were developed. For this time, the audiovisual material was prominent because they were shown excerpts from different videos extracted from the internet for them to build up ideas on these issues. Then, as for the procedure, Of course, there's another PowerPoint designed for this session, which was followed along, including the projection of and commentary on the audiovisual material that I have mentioned. As for the debates, this conforms the second part of the lesson, in which, first of all, they are presented to the students. They were stereotypes related to sexuality and gender. And afterward, the group debates were created, along with the roles, whether they were going to be for or against the roles. The remainder of the lesson in this case consists in preparation time for the debates, for the groups to get together, and follow a specific outline that was provided to Ben and uploaded on the virtual classroom website of the high school, considering the evaluation criteria. These debates were held during the next class session, and that concluded our didactic unit. But what did the students think of it? What was their experience during all this process? Well, they were asked with an evaluation sheet, and these were some of the most relevant results obtained. So for the vast majority of the students, a high 86% of them, the topic of the activities was perceived as interesting. In terms of difficulty, the overall difficulty was perceived to be between average and somewhat easy, with a 14% of students believing that it was somewhat easy. This had nothing to do with the quality of the explanations, because when asked about this, they rated the quality of the explanations with a 4.73 out of 5 stars. These are some other comments that were submitted in an open-ended question, in which students thanked as positive aspects that they were able to deepen into the question of gender diversity, be provided first-hand examples, and be provided the chance to work in groups, and also promote and create an environment in which respect and inclusion were considered. These were related to the areas of improvement that were suggested in this open-ended question, in which more content was asked and solicited on gender diversity, along with more group work, more dynamic classes, and even activities that did not involve an evaluation, considering the assessment of the regular subject. They also wished they could have checked more difficult words in the mother tongue, because everything was too new for them, and also something regarding the speed of the lessons, as the terms of restrictions allowed for a shorter implementation and more intensive of the didactic unit. To finish this presentation, the following remarks will be made. All in all, it has been proven that younger generations have become more aware of how diverse most spectra are, and gender is being no exception to this. By carefully choosing the appropriate materials, it was possible to abide by the curricular exigencies, as well as bringing that innovative factor into the EFL classroom with the help of new technologies. Thanks to them, it was possible to enrich the learning experience by providing other communicative modes that helped the target group to further consolidate this new knowledge. In fact, this is what implementing technology should consist in these academic settings. It's not to make everything revolve around technology, but use it as a guiding tool to benefit the learning experience of our students. The limitations of our study were related to the achievement of objectives, given that there were some administrative proceedings that delayed an earlier implementation of the didactic unit, and this could have resulted in more progress in terms of content acquisition. In addition, some readjustments had to be made to the didactic unit to ensure a more effective learning experience for our students. In light of this, further studies could bring the scope of gender diversity to larger and broader topics and gain profit from the vast and the countless open educational resources that are available out there to keep nurturing our students and contribute to the transformation of our society into a more self-aware, tolerant, and inclusive one. This was everything that we tried to mention in our study, and now it is time to listen to what you have to say about it. So feel free to comment and share any thoughts or opinions and even suggestions to our proposal. And we'll be more than thankful to read them and reply to them. Thank you.